This is the house I was born in. This is me at 6 months. This is me as a 3-year-old. I'm 81 years of age. I've lived in this area of Daglish Subiaco all my life. You could, as a kid, go for miles out of the bush. You had places such as the West Subiaco Aerodrome. You had Raymond Hill, Perry Lakes. You had horse stables down near the, just under the Shenton Park subway. And you just be able to do these things as a kid. Most of the land was rail owned and it was leased to companies or businesses.
Subi Centro was a vast backyard of Subiaco, we used to call it. It was the wasteland, the industrial land for the whole of the western suburbs for nearly a century.
It was recognised in the early 1990s that there was an opportunity for much better use of the old industrial land and railway land in Subiaco, which had to a large extent become pretty derelict. It was in the days when the virtues of transit-oriented developments, getting higher density, better use out of land around major public transport, so the decision was made then in about 1994 to go ahead with what was then quite a revolutionary new development and using the Redevelopment Authority model. It was recognised, and it's been proven through experience, that having a single public agency with the ability to undertake master planning, the overall land use planning and design for an area, and then with development controls, in other words the ability to approve the buildings which ultimately are going to be established on the area.
We set out to achieve a linkage between Subiaco and Wembley. We set out to achieve improved public transport and therefore more people using transport. We wish to also ensure that the makeup of the fabric of the buildings responded to the history and the heritage of Subiaco, the red brick, the pitch roof. We set out to ensure there's an increase in residential and commercial and retail offering. It was a visionary project, but not everybody was keen.
There was a lot of opposition, and it was mostly from the people of Subiaco. They had always, traditionally, a very contained town centre. You know, the Rockaby Road railway line at the end of the day, end of the Rockaby Road. They felt that any change to that would, allow the hordes from the north in, and it would dilute the effectiveness of their town centre. They saw themselves as just a little country town that just happened to be 3 kilometres from the city centre of Perth. People from Wembley weren't so worried, other than that we were potentially going to put a bit of traffic through their suburb. The
intention was to undertake a transit-oriented development so that there could be medium density development in high quality buildings, apartments, with the aim of reducing reliance on motor vehicle transport, so increasing the use of public transport, and obviously that opportunity is very much there, being very much adjacent to the Perth to Fremantle rail line, where people, for a range of reasons, are wanting to live in good quality apartment type accommodation rather than single houses on separate blocks where the amount of maintenance of gardens and so on may not suit them.
We had to underground an existing rail line and keep one operational as well. We have 1.6 kilometres of underground tunnel and about a 2 kilometre work site, which we had to dig in the middle of an urban environment, and that was a nearly a $40 million exercise. And the contractor Multiplex invented an entirely new system to deliver that. Other issues we had were maintaining a road system around that, which involved having temporary roads and temporary bridges. And the other one, of course, was that any time we went anywhere and did anything on the site, we encountered a great deal of contamination. And we needed to then work through a system where we effectively remediated sites and rolled through the development. Always knowing that it didn't matter how much testing we did, we always ended up finding things we didn't expect.
When this project was committed to by the government, by the Subiaco Redevelopment Authority, we spent our first years understanding the land, understanding the businesses that sat on the land, so we can actually then sort of stage it to complement the businesses and let them ease out of the project slowly. The first residential houses were occupied in 1999, so that's the start point. That's the start point where people moved in to Subi Gardens, and we started building a residential population to enable us to move towards Station Square.
Our involvement was right from the beginning, when it was a sand patch and first advertised for tender by the Subiaco Redevelopment Authority. We were one of a number that put in a tender for the redevelopment of what the Subiaco Redevelopment Authority called at that time the jewel in the crown, which was the square around the station and all the surrounding buildings. There was a perception in Perth that we would never sell residential apartments around a train square or close to a train station because of the noise. However, the market research proved to be very wrong, because in fact that is exactly what the people wanted. They wanted to be close to transport, shopping and proximity for cafes and all the things that Subiaco Square now offers.
The greatest achievement in my mind is Subiaco Square. It's the jewel in the crown. It's an amazing piece of work by a whole lot of people, and the most satisfying piece is to watch people enjoy it, whether they're the residents or the visitors from Perth or visitors from the East Coast. It's the great outcome.
The marketing pitch at the time was the soul of Europe in the heart of Subiaco, and that was deliberately worked up, that catchphrase, because we genuinely believed that this was a European style square that was going to be developed and was a first not only for Perth but for Australia.
The first residents moved in about 1999, and that followed a sequence where there'd been a demonstration street created, in fact with lemon trees in the front yards, and then people then chose the house to build with one of those demonstration house builders or their own.
So I've always had a fond feeling for Subiaco. I started seeing the ads, and then I drove by and saw the area and thought, this looks interesting. So I attended the first auction and went from there. I didn't buy at the first auction because I thought it was too expensive for me. And then I have a friend who is a property developer, and he persuaded me that no, you can still do it. And I did. I got a designer, we designed my house, and I absolutely love it.
One of the key aspects of this project was to integrate heritage. For example, we wanted to make sure that we reflected the red brick, which is so commonly used through Subiaco, the pitched roof. So it's the scale and form that we saw as being very important to ensure that Subi Centro embraced Subiaco and Wembley from whence it came. It's important with a project like this to really respond to design detail, and because that's what people remember. They remember the small tile that's embedded in the concrete, or the texture on the wall, or the plant materials. They're the sorts of things that we've spent an enormous amount of time through good urban designers, through good landscape architects, through horticulturists, and all that team works together. They work many hours and many weeks and many weekends to really find the essence of what makes Subi Centro. And even today I walk through here and I'm surprised by things I find, where they've actually worked to that extra edge to actually do something that's memorable.
The whole planning of open space, the scale of the design and the guidelines we achieved made it very attractive for not only us but for the buyers and the leasing people within the community. You only got to talk to the traders in the shops and the residents that live here, and as a promoter of the original project I'd have to say it's been highly successful for a whole range of reasons. There is a big diverse range of people within this project and businesses, and all of them without exception are very happy at where they're either living or working.
What I love about being a part of Subi Centro is that it's a really vibrant and exciting area. When I grew up, Subi Station, that's all I can remember of this area. Subi Station and maybe sand. I don't think we ever came past, like you just stop at Subi Station, there was nothing else here. So when I returned to Perth 16 years later to find this brand new kind of amazing square, it was a great surprise. This is a perfect spot right here near the train station. It seemed like an excellent idea for a cafe. Our customers made up of the business people, so above us are some big businesses, around us is big businesses, but also there's a huge group of locals, and they're the best part of it because they're so regular, and often in our cafe you'll have the whole cafe in a full conversation, which is wonderful.
Just still that community feel. The park is the absolute best asset that it could have. Even in the early days we had drinks down at the park every second Tuesday or something. Now there's a Christmas party, and that has been held every year since we've been here. I go out for dinner with about 4 or 5 other ladies actually in this street, and we've been doing that for several years now. There's a group that do mahjong, and there's some other group that do bridge. There's a walking group, I think, that go out as well, and I think some of them are doing swimming. So, you know, it's a whole thing happening here.
As some of these businesses start to disappear for the old timers, I think that was a bit disappointing. But when you see the modern buildings that you've got there now, you've got the restaurants, you've got an increase in people coming into the suburb, then yes, you think, well, that's what's needed. To have this land available so close to the capital city of your state is fantastic. You've got to move with the times, and it's no good, the oldies aren't going to be around the place. It's the young ones that you've got to consider, and I think they certainly embrace it.
I just absolutely love the area, and everyone I mention it to says the same thing. Oh, you must be so, you know, happy living there, and they all see it as a very positive, fabulous little suburb with great infrastructure. It's got everything.
I think as a model, as a transit-orientated development model, it's probably at the forefront still within Australia. It's interesting, you can look back and there's been a lot of development done in the eastern states and even now in Western Australia, and I don't think many of them get close to what Subiaco's achieved.
I think the biggest success in this project is the integration of new contemporary architecture with the old Subiaco. I think we've done a good job on that, and it's sort of brought that balance together well for the people who live here and the people who pass through it.
I think the outcome has been outstanding. It is a very good example of what can be achieved through the Redevelopment Authority model, and seeing what we do now see in Subiaco I think is a very good advertisement for this sort of model and shows what can be done elsewhere in the Perth metropolitan area. I am very pleased with what has been achieved in the redevelopment of Subiaco over the last 17 years, and I think it is a credit to all those who have been involved, all of the staff, the board members, consultants and members of the community, going back to 1994 when the decision was made initially to establish the Subiaco Redevelopment Authority. It really is an outstanding example of a major transit-oriented development and shows what can be achieved through this model, really for the benefits of both people locally and also for the wider community.